So that explains why I have such a hard time keeping you focused on whatever we're talking about.
What are we doing? What are we talking about?
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
This is McCarran Holt with Georgia Spine and Orthopedics in Roswell, Georgia, and you are listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast.
Thank you for that intro. I'm David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning, David.
Ooh, a little bit too much coffee there.
All right.
So
I'm trying to be upbeat.
You are upbeat. Or beat up. I'm not sure which, but you're one or the other.
I'm beat up, so I'm trying to be upbeat. That's it.
Yep. So a couple things. We'll start with the boot camp.
Yes.
Do we have any more seats left? Because I don't know that we do.
Right now, technically we had said at the most we would allow 20 people in. There are 4 seats left, and 2 of those may already be taken.
Okay. So probably 2 seats left.
We don't know. At most, there's 4.
Okay. All right. So I want to get that out there first thing, because I've had some people ask, and if they're like me, they're, screwing around to the last minute.
You said and so.
Some things, yes. So, but yeah, it's not one of those things where the price goes down at the last minute. So. In fact, I think the early bird pricing will be gone by the time this comes out.
Yep, I think so too.
So you missed out. Sorry.
Yeah, but if you want in, we'll hook you up. So,
but we can give you early bird pricing on the 2021 version of the boot camp. So just let us know if you want to prepay for next year's.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see how this one goes. Because if this is successful and we get positive feedback, we might be able to do more of them this way and still have the on-site ones so that you could come. But to be able to do it this way gives us a lot more flexibility in time and methods. And I'm excited. It's going to be a good group. It's an interesting collection of different information. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. And I'm excited about all the tools that I've been able to purchase.
Yeah, all the things you've been able to use this as an excuse for. I got you.
Yeah. I got to have this. Got to have that. So yeah, I've had to spend a small fortune in audio video equipment.
Yeah, because you wanted to.
No, I had to.
Okay. Gotcha.
It was just,
I needed it.
The people that come to the boot camp are so worth the investment.
All right, there you go.
So I did it.
All right.
So
you go now.
If you are interested in the HIPAA boot camp, go to thehipaabootcamp.com and get more information there. Sign up. We don't have signups yet for next year's, but if you want to pay in advance, let us know. We'll make it happen. All right. So moving right along. I am excited that we got confirmation via LinkedIn that we moved the needle.
Yeah. I didn't know you were going to bring this up. Thank you, Eric Decker, for making him worse.
So I often say, the powers that be are listening, because it's awfully funny how we mention something in a podcast, and the next thing you know, we're seeing OCR or HHS or some of these other acronyms start doing things. And I'm like, they're telling you, they're getting it from our podcast, and they're using this as information on what they need to be working on. Mm-hmm. And Eric Decker confirmed it. So thank you, Eric, for stepping up and confirming we make a difference.
Oh, God. Bless you.
Yep. And so for all you other acronym people out there, thank you for what you do.
Okay, you're happy about that, and
I know it's been a mystery for so long. I've been saying it, but it's like one of those things. It's like we've been looking for life outside of this planet for so long, and we finally got confirmation. So, with all the other crazy things that's happened this year, this is yet another thing.
Oh, jeez.
All right, so I'm picking on Eric. He's a good sport, and he doesn't know it yet, but we're going to ask him to be on again shortly.
I know. I haven't even asked him yet, but we're going to ask him to be on again. Bless his little heart.
He's going to hear it here first. Before we got plans for you, Eric.
That's fun. Oh, jeez.
All right. So anyway, as always happens, we do not have to look far for things to talk about. And recently, we've had some things come up talking about, guess what? More problems with MSPs and being attacked.
Well,
And,
it's not more. It's the same story. It's just there's new information about things that we have mentioned before.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of how a lot of this stuff goes.
Yeah.
It's all the same stuff. It just keeps circling around like a toilet bowl.
I know, particularly when it comes to ransomware. I don't like talking about it, but it's like every day.
We're going to talk about it until it goes away.
That ain't happening. But this isn't necessarily about ransomware itself. It's about dealing with the impact of ransomware and what's happening to us because of it.
Yeah. And then we're going to kind of move over into some insurance things. And we should probably get our insurance guy from Sterling back in here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm going to have to talk to John. Just keep giving me a list of things to do there, David.
I'm good at that. So
we haven't done interviews in a while, and now we're talking about 3 different episodes with others on. So we're on it.
So John, if you're listening, we'll be reaching out. You don't know it yet, but you're going to be on soon too. So yeah, got some cool things coming up. We talked, before we hit record, we were talking about doing a kind of a panel discussion on some things. So that'll be interesting.
Yep, some stuff we've never done before. New ground, new territory.
Got to use all this new technology I'm being forced to buy. Oh boy.
And we're off.
Yep. All right. So before we get into our regular scheduled program, anything else you want to talk about?
Well, we just got in a question, but I haven't had time to make a plan. So no, I was going to talk about that, but no, I need to. It just came in this morning, so I'll deal with it on the next episode. Moving right along. Sorry.
Don't you just want to do stuff live? All right. So let's take a quick break for our, insanely lucrative sponsoring of podcast stuff from those who pay us so much money to put this thing together. The number of medical practices that think they're HIPAA compliant is pretty staggering. Effective privacy and security are an ongoing process, not a checklist. And that's why at Cardin, they don't just assess your situation and leave you with a report, but they work with you all along the way. Call Cardin today at 678-292-5001 or visit them on the web at cardinhq.com. Aren't your patients worth it?
Are you frustrated with your current IT provider? Are you sure you're getting the security and protection you need? Are you putting your patients and your practice at risk? If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, give Security First IT a call to learn more about how they can protect your patients, your practice, and your bottom line. Find them online at securityfirstit.com or call 980-288-5100.
All right, we're back. And for those of you who might be new, those 2 companies that sponsor us are mine and Donna's companies.
It is us.
'Tis us.
Yes, 'tis us.
So, yeah. And for those of you who have asked about sponsorship, we haven't forgot about you.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out our lives.
Yeah.
But we do wish that we could get more 5-star ratings. We do need some more 5-star ratings. We
Yeah,
need
it is
that
about that
traffic
time.
on a regular basis.
Yeah. And, if one of your things is like, I don't like the beginning and the banter, before you leave your review, understand that you can't skip that. Just saying, it's not a problem on this podcast, but I have seen others.
Oh, jeez.
Learn how to use the player. So Anton, my business partner, he's like, I listen to the podcast, and for one, I have to hear your voice a lot, so I don't want to really hear it on the podcast. But I have learned to listen to you at 2x, which makes you and Donna sounds like chipmunks.
That alone could be fun.
But yeah, he listens to everything at 2x. But so that's one way. If you are pressed for time, then speed it up.
Yeah, it makes me nervous. I can't do it that way, but other people are fine with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with podcasts when I'm listening to books, audiobooks. Mm-hmm. Then I almost always listen to it at least 1.5. Yeah. I find that I can't stay focused on it if it's at 1x. I'd start drifting. So if I speed it up some, I have to listen closer.
So that explains why I have such a hard time keeping you focused on whatever we're talking about.
What are we doing? What are you talking about? That is true.
Great. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it is true. I sometimes tell my wife, you have to speak faster because you're losing me. Between the computer and the phone and the TV and the radio and all these other things, I'm like, I'm losing my focus. You better do it.
It's what you told me. This is what we've taught people.
It is.
It's 4 minutes is too long. 4 minutes is too long. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And I mentioned this, but when you start a video on YouTube and you have to wait for the 5-second countdown to skip the ad. I'm like, hurry up.
I just stare at it. 5, 4, 3.
Have you seen
the ones where they don't give it to you though?
But have you seen the thing now where like you click on it and it says, do you want to see all your ads in the beginning or do you want them to be sparse throughout the video? Have you seen that yet? So apparently, I guess if it's a long video and it's going to have multiple ads, you can choose to watch all the ads at the front. Or it stops it, periodically and shows you the ad.
Yeah, I'd rather watch them all at the front.
That's what I do.
Because the inserts are so harsh.
Yeah.
Which is another reason that we don't do a lot of this ad stuff.
Yeah.
So let's do an ad to encourage MSPs to see the information that's out there.
This is always fun because, it's kind of what I do. It's my day job. But, yeah. So, there's a couple different, perspective on this and, not that we haven't discussed it before, but attacks are always changing and the methodology changes and what they want to get out of it changes. And, these IT providers, of which I am, sometimes I wonder, like, have you really evaluated what's going on? And are you doing things to protect yourself? I always come at things with the thought process of it's not just what am I doing to protect myself from it happening, but what am I doing to be prepared for when it happens? And most people don't go to that extent. They're like, oh, I've got all this security stuff. We're good. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I have that. But the day that it's not good, am I ready for that?
Yep. Well, that's, like you say, do you know how many people feel like they can't believe that they fell for a phishing campaign or one of those financial scams or anything? Do you know how many people, when it happened to them, they can't believe they were fooled? All of them.
Yeah. I had a conversation yesterday with an accounting firm. And I said, how's your phishing training going? Not that I don't know. I like to ask. How's your phishing training going? And he's like, well, right now we have a score, a failing score, because it doesn't give you a passing score. The failing score was like 23%. And they're like, it's in the green, so I think that's good. And I'm like, well, that just means you have a 23% chance of having a ransomware attack go through successfully. And he's like, oh, that's not good. He's like,
there you go. That's the way to look at it.
But then he's like, well, why is the number green? It should be red. I was like, anything above 1% should be red.
Yeah, true that.
But yeah, the phishing stuff, it only takes one. It takes one person, one time.
That's some hacker supposedly said that you have to be right all the time. I only have to be right once.
That is correct.
Yeah. So that is kind of the approach for this MSP guidance that came out from NIST, and within NIST, the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, NCCoE.
They don't have a name for it.
I don't. NICO, I don't know. But it's a really cool place, and if you've never been, go check it out, because they do have a bunch of different resources available that's built on a public-private partnership kind of thing that is providing cybersecurity solutions. Hence the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. But it has stuff for like different industries and cross sector. It's really good. And that is their intent. And if you go check out the specific sector stuff, there's things for healthcare, but that's not the piece that we're going to talk about today, because they do have some really interesting things about telehealth, and maybe we'll cover those in another episode. But they have a specific project that I may have mentioned before. I know I've mentioned it somewhere. Been watching it, waiting for it to be done. It was a draft and stuff. Is MSPs improving cybersecurity of managed service providers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, David.
Yes.
Have you ever experienced someone, maybe in the managed service provider business, that told you they didn't need to worry about their cybersecurity? They had it covered.
That would be a true question.
And more than once, maybe?
That would be true also.
So if that were the case, why would we be getting this guidance from NIST?
That is a fantastic question, to which I do not have the answer. Because I think it is a rhetorical question.
Well, I mean, you've got to assume, everybody assumes it's, somebody else. But here's the important thing, is that if you utilize a managed service provider for any part of your support, and if you're in business today and you don't have professional IT support, you use, I got a guy, or I got a neighbor's guy.
ShadeTreeIT.com.
Yeah, there you go. You're certainly not meeting the cybersecurity requirements. I mean, you know from your experience, when you went from being, what do you call it, the minimum service provider, you were always trying to be above and beyond that, and then you just said, look, I'm going to step it up. And when you merged with Anton, you became security first IT. So you are focusing now on security, and it is very different when you go in and replace another MSP.
Oh, isn't it though? And it's, the fun part is when we displace another MSP for whatever reason, we tend to find security issues, and oftentimes not just things that are like, oh, you should be doing this. It's usually things like, did you know that you had a breach going on?
Right.
Or one of your employees has installed crypto mining, malware themselves on your computers, or it's something that the other MSP could not detect because they're not using the security tools that we're using.
Well, and the other thing, isn't it, though, a lot of it's not necessarily intentional ignoring it. They honestly believe they've got it covered.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't necessarily seen an MSP who is just blatantly disregarding, security, or even that doesn't take it seriously. Sometimes it's the fact that in order to do really good security, there's a cost involved in that, and they are not able or do not want to have that type of cost increase, because then now you got to go to your clients and start having pricing discussions about why you're going up 15 to 20%.
Well, but that goes back to people don't want to pay for these type of services. They don't think,
yeah.
why can't you just do what I need you to do without costing more.
Now, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And then,
Exactly.
the big part of it really is not the cost of the tools. It's the cost of the manpower that it takes to monitor these things and keep an eye on it. Because, it doesn't matter how many alarm systems you have on your house. If nobody can hear the alarm going off or nobody gets signaled when the alarm goes off, then, it doesn't really do you much good.
Yeah, it's like when you're in a parking lot and a huge parking lot and a car alarm is going off. Do people run to try to help whatever's going on with the car? Most people just go about their business.
Yep, they do. I mean, I think they can honestly see you trying to break in the car and they would just still ignore you. But, if let's say you're a criminal and you walk by somebody's home and let's say you try to break in and the alarm goes off and you take off running and you're somewhere nearby and like nobody ever comes out. Nobody ever comes to the house. Police don't show up. You might do it twice just to make sure it wasn't a fluke. But that third time, that alarm can go off the whole time you're in the house. You don't care.
Exactly.
Because nobody's paying attention.
And that's exactly what the criminals do.
Yep.
So this guidance that came out in their MSP project, and so the summary that they say is many small and medium-sized businesses use managed service providers. It's what we're talking about, MSPs, which is essentially what we used to think of as IT support. Mm-hmm. But they use them to remotely manage their organization's IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, and related business operations. As a result, MSPs have become an attractive target for cyber criminals. And when an MSP is vulnerable to a cyber attack, it also increases the vulnerability to the small and medium-sized businesses they support.
Yep.
So this package they've created is guidance to the MSP on how to improve cybersecurity by implementing key security controls that reduces vulnerabilities to cyber attacks. And these recommendations, they say, it will enable you to adopt technologies and techniques to improve security for yourselves, your small and medium business, and what you can apply or customize for your needs and so on and so forth. So they're planning on putting out other ones. And this particular one references an architecture and specific technology and capabilities that you should be deploying. Fair enough?
Yep.
And, I, again, cannot stress enough that many people will ask their MSPs if they listen to this and they say, okay, I'm going to ask my MSP. And the MSP will just say, I got that covered.
Yeah. Well, it's because usually it's a bad question.
Yeah. But
the question is, do we have security? Yes.
Right. So I don't want, that's kind of like asking the kid, did you do your homework? Sure. As they're walking by.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. So the better issue is going to be whether or not they show you, because again, in our world, we need documentation to show what's going on. And if they were to say, this is one of the reasons we encourage MSPs, take the hiccup document, take this document, and follow the information in here so that you can say, look, we're referencing these standards and here's how we're meeting them. And you address it exactly the way the standards are. You show, here are the standards and this is what we're doing to address them.
Yep.
That's what we think you should do. Whether you're doing it or not, I can't control. But here are some of the points that are covered in that MSP documentation. Planning is critical. In fact, most of the document is about what you should be planning and understanding that backup and recovery is the best way to prepare for a ransomware attack.
Yeah. Like I said before, you got to be ready for when it happens, not just trying to protect yourself from it happening.
Yeah, because these guys are changing constantly. The sophistication level, so the number of attacks necessarily that are out there is maybe dropping, but the sophistication level makes them more effective, so they don't have to do as many.
Mm-hmm.
And the level of control that they get is forcing payments, which we'll get into in just a second, the impact of that.
Yeah. And this is another reason why it drives me crazy when I look at the BAA. You know where I'm going with this.
Yes.
We want to see documentation of every security incident that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no.
Pings, scans. Yeah. It's constant.
Yeah. It's all the time. Somebody standing at your door knocking.
Mm-hmm. Just looking at what's happening on a website, for example. You know, it's ridiculous the number of attacks that we face just on our websites.
Oh, yeah.
And on even, home networks, there are times I shut everything down because we'll be getting some sort of a attack, trying a brute force attack, trying to get in. And I've had to shut it down before just to make them go away. Because I can see it. They're just like pounding away trying to get into the network. So that stuff's happening constantly.
Yep.
So here are some of the things your plan should consider. And this is, again, things we cover a lot of this in the boot camp when we're talking about disaster recovery. But, there's disaster recovery and then there's backup and restore, two separate things.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that this guidance has nothing to do with HIPAA, but it has everything you're supposed to do under HIPAA. Brilliant. So here are some of the things that they recommend. These are just a few of the things. What files are being backed up? Is it just some of what you need, or event logs backed up for forensics use so you can see what's going on? Do you use cloud services? How are those being backed up? And again, they're pointing out that a lot of groups learn the hard way, that maybe my backup didn't include my accounting software and data, or there's some local folder that even the IT folks have no idea that's where everybody puts their spreadsheets.
Yeah. And it's worth taking a second just to talk a bit about the cloud services.
Indeed.
There are some people I know well, who have learned the hard way that your cloud service providers are not always backing up your data.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I knew a young man who had an IT company, and he was using QuickBooks Online. And somebody decided to make a mass change to a lot of invoices.
Mm-hmm.
So called into it and I said, hey, this got messed up. Can you roll back our data file to, this morning or yesterday or whatever? To which they responded, huh?
Yeah, we don't do that.
What? So no, imagine if all the data was lost instead of just changed. I mean, there's, fortunately now this person has a backup on that data set. But the point is, cloud services rarely are backed up unless you're paying for that separate service. Not by default. I don't care if it's Microsoft 365 or Google G Suite or Intuit's QuickBooks, whatever. These things are not typically backed up.
Well, they are backed up from a very general thing. If Intuit were to go down, they would be able to restore to wherever they had backed up to. But your individual damages,
you're on your own.
It's a roll of the dice.
Yeah, you're on your own. I've even had a doctor that deleted a user account, and I guess 30 days went by or so, and they decided there were some files that were on that user account that were on Google Drive, and they needed it.
Mm-hmm. Gone.
Not recoverable. Called Google. Google's like, can't do it.
Yep. We told you, and they make it clear.
Yeah.
This is how this works. But that's why you and I both, I use a tool called Spanning Backup that does a backup every night of everything that we have in our G Suite account.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had to go to it before when we, accidentally update everything and we want to be able, Google's not going to be able to restore that for you. Google Backup is disaster. Something happens to Google, they can restore. Something happens to you, unless they've got it on some of the features where you can do the history, no, it's not coming back. So if you delete a whole bunch of, say, calendar entries,
Yeah.
I think now they're starting to add trash to that. But we've had it happen more than once and had to go back to that backup to restore things.
So the point being, just because you're on cloud services and, oh, my data's in the cloud and I don't have any data on a server locally, you still have the need for backups, and you still need to understand how that can happen and function, because at some point you will lose data, whether it's a vendor mistake or a user mistake, or at some point you're going to have problems.
Right. So don't assume.
Yeah.
Because we know about assume.
All right. So the next one's a little bit harder.
So this is one you like, though. You like talking about this one.
So it's know your RTO and your RPO, and not ELO.
Oh, boy, that gave me a flashback.
So your recovery time objective and your recovery point objective. And and it surprises me how many people are selling the service but don't understand the concept.
I know. It's if you ask them, so there's the recovery time. How long is it going to take you to recover?
Right. So it's kind of the biggest question. Like, you should first ask somebody is, okay, you want backup and recovery. Well, what is the time frame that you need this recovery to happen? Like, do you need to recover within 15 minutes? Do you need to recover within a week, a month? What is your tolerance? So that should be your first question.
And trust me, people have learned the hard way that you can't just, restore and it takes 5 minutes. That's for some reason people have that misperception that, okay, the backup's happening. I am not even aware when that's happening, how long it takes, what it does. I have no idea. So the restore should be the same way.
Yeah.
And it's not. And then once you do restore, where are you restoring to? Are you restoring to last week? Here it is Friday and I'm restoring to last Saturday. So those are super important. And if you don't know that, time to have a call. But again, these are in that document. I would love to see MSPs take these documents and present them to their clients to say, I want you to know these are the things that we are doing to meet these requirements.
Yeah.
And let them have it in their documentation.
Yeah. And there always seems to be a disconnect between the MSP and the client on these conversations. It's like, well, I thought you were backing up these other computers. I'm like, no.
That's why we sit down and do a plan and make sure that we account for things. And it truly is a disconnect. It's not like they know that they should be backing it up and they're not. They have no idea these things are over there. They think they're not doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's that same discussion that I had with another owner of an IT company. And I'm like, I go to your client and I'll say, do you do disaster recovery? And they'll say, yeah, IT company handles that. And I go to you and you say, no, we don't do disaster recovery. We do their backup. Okay. Yeah. But both of you think you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
So then we've got, what dependencies do you need to consider? Because that's another thing that often, and I'll get frustrated because there are times in the past where I've had to do these big restores, and I'll get some steps out of order, and you have to go back and start back behind it. If you don't have like the user profiles and everything loaded, and then you load the data files, does it lose it? And depending on what your configuration is, what operating system it is, how the authority gets reconnected, and all of those pieces, you've got to know about encryption keys and your digital signatures, or how do I get those restored to unlock the system? And my favorite one is, well, we'll just call IT and replace all our computers if we had a fire.
Yeah,
it's not that easy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not that easy. And
especially nowadays.
I know, right?
I'm ordering computers now and it's like a month turnaround time.
And to assume that you could order 50 and get them in a couple of days and completely restored everything, Those are things that you have to understand, the layers that are required.
Mm-hmm.
And then the management of the backup files. That's another point that they bring up. What backups are offline and secured, because we know that the ransomware attacks are encrypting the backups or wiping them out.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the ones today where they're in there lurking around watching. How do you control that?
Yeah, because let's assume they have a decent backup plan and they're backing up different versions and basically have 90 days worth of backups. That sounds like a reasonable plan. But if I'm a criminal, I just put my stuff on your system, wait 120 days, and then do what I'm going to do, because from that point on, if you restore from any backups, I'm still in there.
Yep, that dwell time. And there's also develop a written response and recovery processes and procedures. Ever heard that before?
That's a new concept, I believe.
But this is, again, for everybody, not just healthcare. They're saying this is what businesses should do. So, yes, HIPAA requires it, but HIPAA would have had you, if you'd been following it, you'd be ahead of the curve, not behind it. And this is that whole thing of assuming that everybody knows what to do. I assume I can just call up IT and they're going to know what to do.
Yeah.
Do they really?
We saw that a lot with the rush to work from home, right?
Oh, I know.
Everybody's calling the IT guy like, we got to work from home tomorrow. And running around trying to find computers and trying to figure out how to circumvent all the security that they've got at the office so that workers can work from home. And I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. The IT providers, there's nothing they could do to be prepared if they hadn't thought about, what would I do in a crisis if all my clients needed something at one time? And that's part of this planning and evaluating. How can I adapt to changing circumstances? Now, this is just a barely scratching the surface of the things that are included in the planning section. So if we've already hit things that you haven't thought about, imagine what else is in there.
Yeah.
And that's just the planning section. There's implementation recommendations. There's testing and monitoring recommendations. It's 2 pages of it's more than that. It's very specific information. So they have a 1-pager and then they have an extended one. The recommendation I have is pull the extended one and go through it with your MSP. And if you're an MSP, go through it with your clients. Make sure that there is a plan. And in the discussions that they have about, how do you do your backup, and, discuss with your vendors that you need them to do this kind of stuff proactively kind of thing. And don't make assumptions, because when I need to do this, we have to have this happen quickly. And in healthcare, we also have to add in the fact that we have to account for forensics and breach notification. And obviously that may happen as well in financials and some of these other areas. So don't forget to include those things in your planning, testing, and documentation. Boom.
Yep.
So there you go. Any other MSP discussions there, David, before we switch to this insurance impact?
Nope, I have none. Just make sure that, your MSP is not a minimum service provider. That's all I got to say.
Well, if that's what you want to pay for.
Well, yeah, there is that. It's kind of, when we talk about that backup discussion, I always remember the time this lady, she ran a big construction company and she's like, we can't afford any downtime, like none, 0. I'm like, okay, we can do that. This is the price. She goes, well, maybe we can do a day or 2.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. So, and see, that is a perfect segue into what it costs to handle these things and be prepared for these things. And when these things hit, we've heard many, many times, I don't have to worry about it. I got insurance.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more to it than that. And in February, before, all the things hit the fan, the COVID fan hit, the Rona.
BC.
I know.
before COVID.
Yeah. There's so many ways we can look at it. There was an article that came out, and I kind of had it on my list of things to discuss in an episode. Ransomware attacks are causing cyber insurance rates to go through the roof. Premiums up as much as 25%. Okay, that got my attention, right? So I'm like, yeah, we need to review that. And it was Chief Privacy Officer online. Anyway, there's a link to it. And I saw another article this week that then made me remember, hey.
Where's the other one?
Yeah, let me go find the other one. The other article, Indiana Court of Appeals holds that losses from a ransomware attack are not covered under policy's computer fraud provision. Yeah, let me go get that. So I'm looking through those articles, and in the first article, really, it was a sad point. Insurance companies are more frequently advising clients to pay the ransom if they have the coverage for it, because it's seen as the least expensive resolution with the lowest amount of business interruption.
Really?
Let's save money, and the insurance company's certainly interested in it, but what do we know? It's making the problem worse.
Yeah, number one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, making the payment doesn't mean you're going to get your data back, or if you get it back, is it even usable?
Mm-hmm. We've often told you that the number of cases, it's not minuscule where you pay them and it's not like an overnight success.
Yeah. And not to mention the fact that you still have to figure out what happened so that you can repair the problem.
Mm-hmm. And know whether they're still hanging out in there and all these kind of things.
Yeah, which, more and more costs.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you pay, if I was a criminal and you were a good paying customer,
I know, right?
I'd want to do business again.
I'll be back for more.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So it is the thing. And so they're all trying to figure out now, how do we cut cost and in the insurance industry because of what this cost us. And even that, we're paying the ransom because that's the cheapest way. And we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, definitely not the best way.
Uh-huh. But they included ideas to save money. Like, I have to have a specific ransomware policy. And if I don't have that, then nothing's covered. Or that high-risk companies, and this one's a scary one, and people should pay attention because we've talked before about if you're hit once, it will happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you don't tighten things down quickly, it will happen again. Let's put it that way. But the discussion was that they suggest that high-risk companies with a history of breaches may even be forced into a policy that's a ransomware policy that will only cover 20% of your total claim.
Ooh.
Damn. Now, that's directly related to the expense. So what's this going to do? And you're right. We should have John on to talk about these issues, and it's now on my to-do list. Don't worry, David. But that brings us to the next article. And I think this is the one that you went, well, that makes me unhappy, kind of, in some very flourishable language. In it, so this is the Indiana case where the company G&G, I think it's oil or whatever, they were hit by ransomware in 2017. And this is before they were as sophisticated as they are now.
Mm-hmm.
And this one encrypted their files, plus it password protected their hard drives. So it was a real mess. And they really didn't see any other option besides paying. So guess what happened? What do you think?
I think that they were such a great customer.
They came back for more.
Exactly. That's what I would do.
I know, right? And
Thank
this
you,
is where,
sir. Can I have another?
But okay, so here you go. The attacker took the payment and then demanded another payment.
I know I told you the car was on sale for $15,000.
Yeah. But that doesn't include the key. The key cost.
Yeah. Wheels? You need wheels and tires? What?
Yeah, because they did come back to him for 3 payments
Awesome.
before they were able to get to everything. So, it's not a get out of jail quickly or by no means free if you pay them. So they had to pay 3 separate times. This is what we've talked about before. And I don't think enough people understand and believe this really goes on, but this is what happened. And, it can be encrypted and you decrypt that and it's like, oh, that worked. But now they've encrypted what they encrypted.
I'd love to hear the third conversation. And I
know,
wonder,
right?
was there a fourth? Like, did they come back the 4th time and they finally were just like, no, not doing it again?
Yeah.
But yeah, or the 3rd time was like, yeah, you know what? They've paid a good bit. Let's move on. Let's get us another good paying customer.
So these guys, they file a claim for all of these payments under what's called a multi-peril commercial common insurance policy that it said and there's a specific quote about what the policy said, loss of several things and money resulting directly from the use of any computer to fraudulently cause a transfer of that property.
Okay.
So they're thinking they're covered. The insurance company denied the claim and said that ransomware doesn't apply to that coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Because the term fraud wasn't specifically defined in the policy, so they get to define that when they get your claim. And the company went to court over it, and the appeals court even got involved, and there were multiple rounds of discussions. And the net of it is the appeals court agrees with the lower court. Ransomware isn't covered as fraudulent. And this quote, when I read this quote, this is when I have got to find that other article. It said, the hacker did not use a computer to fraudulently cause G&G to purchase Bitcoin to pay as ransom. Ouch. Ouch. That's all I got to say is ouch. So they ain't playing, brother. They ain't playing.
That's rough.
And I know. So not only do we have that the costs are going up, but we also have that the insurance companies are very specifically applying what happens and the courts are upholding it. Now, we had this happen years ago in a case, and it was a traveler's case with Cottage Health. And in that case, they ended up siding with Cottage Health. But since then, people getting better at it. That's all I'm saying. But getting better.
Yep.
So there you go. You need to go talk to your MSPs, your IT folks, whether you have internal IT or you have. Let's sit down and review. And like I said, if you haven't reviewed Hiccup with them, do that too. And all of the things that the 10 best practices under Hiccup, as well as this list that specifically deals with recovery from ransomware.
Yep. And you probably want to sit down with your insurance provider as well.
Yeah, you think maybe after hearing this, I think I'm going to even check into mine.
Yeah. Let's go over this policy here.
Mm-hmm. So you've got to worry about preventing these things, but you really need to worry about what happens when they happen.
Yeah. It's definitely not something where I want to go, I'll just let the insurance deal with it. No, I don't think so, because I don't have any trust at all that the insurance is going to cover it.
Well, and if they do, look at what it takes. I mean, there's a company that we talked about in December that closed because they paid, and months later, they still weren't up and running.
Yeah. Well, it may not even be, and I'm not trying to demonize the insurance companies. It just may be that the insurance program asks for me to have certain things in place, and, maybe I don't for whatever reason.
And so that was the travelers thing. And
right.
I think, and that's from, I don't know, maybe 2012, 2014, somewhere much further back. And I think today, if you lie about doing a risk analysis and a risk assessment and having a risk management plan on your application, might want to rethink that.
Yeah. So, just think for all those people who's like, I've got cyber coverage. My insurance guy told me it would be covered and everything, but there's also things that you have to be doing for that coverage to take effect. And, you're too busy trying to save a penny and you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. And guess what happens? When you have a claim, it doesn't get covered. Not the insurance company's fault. It's your fault.
And the statistical likelihood that you will have to deal with something along these lines is not low.
Mm-hmm. So
you know how I feel about statistics.
Yep. So it's not even a bad idea to maybe get your insurance person and your MSP in the same room.
Indeed. So let's encourage bringing those vendors in and not being blindsided with what you learn from them in a crisis.
True. All right. Lots of juicy stuff today.
Indeed.
All right. That is our show for today, folks. Don't forget to share us out on your favorite social media. And don't forget to leave a review. We need some more reviews. And 5-star ones at that.
Exactly.
Don't want Donna to start drinking again. All right. For those of you who are going to be at the boot camp, can't wait to see you in August. For those of you who still might want to show up for this one, thehippabootcamp.com. Check it out. And for Donna and myself, don't forget, the HIPAA, it's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.